This photographer is another Japanese master who is highly regarded within Japan, but relatively unknown to the Western world. Many regard his work as having a mysterious draw to it, given that the subject matter is perfectly normal, but somehow an otherworldly quality comes through it. On this, he stated, "My shooting method was once compared to an ancient sword trick, in which one slashes his enemy at the same time as he removes the sword from his sheath." He was part of a post-World War II movement in Japanese photography known as Kompora, a group of photographers who pursued reality in a cool, clinical manner, which was the opposite of what was largely trending at the time in Japanese photographic history. What makes his photos stand out, and why should the West open their eyes to this photographer? This is Street Smart's Essei Suda. Owing partially to his lack of notoriety outside of Japan, is that while other trailblazers like Moriyama and the other members of Provoke were creating images that intentionally worked against the norm, Suda created work that was beautiful. To briefly summarize Provoke for those unfamiliar with the movement, or who haven't seen my more detailed video on the topic, they created highly stylized images that relied heavily on techniques like arebare bokeh, or grainy, blurry, and out of focus. In a nearly opposite fashion, Suda's straightforward process involved a medium format camera that motivated him to focus on precision in the craft, to create highly detailed photographs that he would turn into prints that were of the highest quality. Kompora's mission statement was, "We must divorce ourselves from all ideology and approach reality in a coolly objective and unemotional manner, working as precisely as possible while concentrating on common, everyday images and events." The name Kompora is a combination word, putting together contemporary and photography. The group was similar to Provoke, only in regard to the fact that each group wanted to separate themselves from photojournalism at the time. It should also be mentioned that Suda is lumped in with this group because he created images that were similar to what they were making, with a similar mentality, but he wasn't personally associated with any of those photographers. In regard to what makes his photos unique and worth studying, Ferdinand Brueggemann, an expert on Japanese photography, stated, "Although Suda developed each of his shots with incredible precision, his images also always describe reality with some form of subtle distortion. His works operate in a highly charged space, somewhere between the objective depiction of everyday occurrences and the often quite unusual views of everyday life that seem to embody some sense of mystery. Ultimately, it is the theater of everyday life that serves as the model for Essei Suda's precise and, at the same time, mysterious images." This mysterious nature also lied within the man himself. Part of the reason Suda had less notoriety outside of Japan is that he mostly kept to himself and didn't experience much promotion of his work outside of the country as a result. The exhibitions Essei Suda, My Japan, that took place in Antwerp in 2021, Life is a Flower from 2014 held in the United States, and a handful of others that took place more recently were the first international retrospectives of his work to be presented, and the first opportunities for many in the West to experience his life and what he created throughout it. On the importance of exhibitions and photo books, and how they relate to the photographer's notoriety in Japan compared to photographers in the West, Brueggemann stated, "His books are also not as well known in the West. Books by photographers are second only to photography exhibitions in terms of their importance for the reception of Japanese photography. Books by photographers are of a much greater importance in Japan than in the West. In Japan, artists have traditionally presented their works to the public by means of their books and magazines. And, as was previously mentioned, young artists are still more likely to have a publisher than a gallerist. The books that he published that gained some level of notoriety are exactly why he's known within Japan, or was able to make a name for himself at all. Evidence of this is provided through the fact that he didn't have any solo exhibitions within the country throughout his lifetime, but still had a decent level of recognition. Issei Suda was born in Tokyo in 1940. He was gifted a Rolleiflex by his family when he was 20, then sometime after, enrolled in the Tokyo College of Photography. He stated, "I did not always know I wanted to become a photographer, but taking photographs was the only future I could imagine." After graduating in 1962, he became the photographer for the underground theater group called Tenjo Tsujiki. This group became a phenomenon in the underground theater scene because of their experimentalism, folklore influences, social provocation, grotesque eroticism, and the flamboyant fantasy characteristics that they put on display. Reflecting on this period of his life, Suda stated, "The most difficult thing for me is to work with other people, so I worked for them as an outsider." In 1971, he traveled throughout Japan to create images around the collective madness that takes place at all of the festivals that happen annually throughout the country. He did this to gain a better understanding of their meaning, and what they say about Japanese society through the customs, makeup, and rituals that are regularly part of these events. In 1977, this work was released in a book titled Fushi Kaden, and it became an immediate hit, gaining Suda early recognition. According to anothermag.com, its title is a direct nod to 14th century treatise by Zeami, the master theorist of Noh theater, drawing parallels between flowers, youth, and the nature of performance. Zeami had called upon actors to fuse their innermost feelings with their outer perceptions, to achieve the purest kind of execution, one that revealed and concealed in equal measure. Brugman dissected this work further, explaining that it is a discourse on tradition and modernity, and this was conducted with particular intensity in Japan. And some artists were, on the one hand, interested in modern metropolis, particularly Tokyo, while others were simultaneously moving back to rural areas and concentrating on old Japan, which was in a state of decline. It was mainly Japanese photographers who depicted this contrast, the radical tension between burgeoning hypermodernity of major cities and the often still very traditional life in rural areas. Suda recalled this time capturing these events, stating, "In the high spirits of festivals, there's a kind of collective madness. People liberate themselves from their daily, often depressed feelings. People transform themselves. The festivals I visited were local. All of the participants and spectators were local. This project was first serialized in a magazine before becoming its own photo book. From there, Suda worked to document the cities and what Japan had transformed into during its post-war years. Through his time capturing images of the modern urbanization that he saw around him, he stated, "I have no particular opinion about contemporary trends, and am almost overwhelmed by the changes. Photography is the art of borrowing. The subject always exists in front of us. This mentality carried through many of the Japanese arts and photography of the era, and is the connective tissue that brings photographers as diverse as Iko Hosei, Daido Moriyama, Nakahira Takuma, and others together with Essei Suda, who all felt this modernity bearing down on them, and looked to document changes in all of the different ways that they saw fit. But it's the level of description, slowness of the work, and the attention to detail that makes Suda's work stand out as unique within this sea of changing creativity in Japanese photography." On finding his creativity in his own work, he stated, "I prefer to discover small surprises that are usually dismissed in our world. Surreal things are not only within my work, but all around us." An evolution of Suda's work began to take place in the 1980s as he began to focus more exclusively on street photography, and can be seen in his book, Human Memory. Many of the images in this work focus on isolation. This is brought through in techniques that helped give his work a unique look, through the adoption of Flash into his process. Flash was also responsible for bringing out that mysterious quality many find in his work. A quality that's hard to put your finger on, given that so much of the subject matter is perfectly normal. On using Flash, he stated, "It's a kind of magical formula to me. I use the Flash, even when I'm not sure of its effectiveness. I snapshot a passerby, or an object that I find interesting while walking. Sometimes, I photograph a person from behind. Surprised by my flash, the person often turns back, yet looks unsure if I have photographed him or her. When I take snapshots without talking to my subjects, they are of course surprised, and often perplexed. They wonder who I am, and why I photograph them. I must say, I am quite rude." Additionally, the high contrast photos that result from this process were inspired by photographs of the movies and a pan-focus technique used by Orson Welles. Within so many of his frames, we can see very dramatic contrast that stands out from a lot of other black and white street photography. The isolation that it brings out in his images is a reflection of an element of Japanese society that is clear to people within and outside of the country. Again, pointing to Brugman's assessment of these photos, he is indeed examining, consciously or unconsciously, a social trend that became quite pronounced in Japan in this period. The major cities, above all the Tokyo metropolitan region, which is now inhabited by over 32 million people, exerted a tremendous attraction. People moved to the cities and were thus torn out of their village communities. In the cities, the people now appear as isolated individuals. Tokyo's rise, the rapid changes in the appearance of the city, and the radical transformation of the social structures play a central role in the discourse in Japanese photography during this period. The work of Suda continues to be discovered and published. One recent example of this is called The Sketch of Kanto Area. It's made up of images that were originally shown in Asahi Camera through 6 issues that were published in 1983. The images themselves focus on snapshot photography, with each title named after popular Japanese pop songs. A quote from the book sums up feelings Suda had at this point in his life. Here I am, drinking high sour and spluttering arguments in the middle of a downtown street, trying to forget the pain when my heart feels empty, and dreaming of Madonna. As I take my Tokyo Chika Chika syndrome with just a light sigh. And I'm going to laugh at things again tomorrow. I'll only hear myself muttering, what a great city Tokyo is. Kamagasaki is a town that became the center of the project that Suda photographed in 2014. He first became aware of the town through the 1960s film titled The Sun's Burial. Suda said this film had a huge impact on him, leaving a vivid image of the town in his mind. The impact came from how impressed Suda was that the director had been able to create a film like that, around such a location, claiming to have been scared when stepping into this area for the first time. This is an area within Osaka that has historically been known as Japan's largest slum. The film revolves around people trying to impact change there, and Suda felt that when he went there 50 years since it had been released, citing that changes still needed to be made in the area. When he produced the work, he stated, "My friend living in Osaka advised me to carry only small cameras to avoid drawing attention from the residents. I, however, ended up picking up 2 medium format cameras, which definitely attracted attention. Needless to say, I have no interest in socio-political issues, never feeling any responsibilities to society. I was even once called an observing photographer. I'm merely a middle-aged stranger. I deserve those sharp glares and alarming jeers that I received from the residents throughout the shoot." But he also felt that this was simply a detour on the roads of his photographic life, and that photographing there didn't have a huge impact on his work overall. It did allow him to go back to look at the negatives from all over Osaka and put them together with these images for an exhibition focused on the topic. Reflecting on the photo book that came out of this, he stated, "While there are already many documentary works which are significant in their own right, what is collected in this photo book are the mere fragments of the everyday lives of the town and the people living there. If someone discovers something new in this body of work, in these images that a passerby saw in this town, it would be simply fortunate for me." In 2019, Suda began to take steps to work towards a new photo book, but 2 months into the process, he passed away. At that point, his wife met with the publishing house that had been working towards bringing this project to life, in order to show them the images that were up for consideration. The 500 images that came from Suda's entire archive were all images that had previously gone unpublished. Suda had instructed his wife to use these images and show her when the time comes. Of these images, 78 were selected to be part of the book titled 78. The text that goes along with these photos reads, "It was only upon our return to France that I realized Suda had passed away at 78. The exact number of prints we had intuitively selected on this autumn afternoon. This book is a tribute to the great photographer he was." In closing, one more quote from Suda expresses how he felt about his life and photography. "Just like there exists no flower that has no name, there are no nameless humans existing in reality. While seemingly buried in the casualness of everyday life, all of them carry their own individual power and toughness, concealed deep within. Their time may have been just a passing moment that is long gone, but as a photographer, I seem to feel the repercussions and the significance of their existence still today." Through all that Suda photographed during his life, he noticed changes happen in what he considered worth creating photos around, claiming that it was not because I'm getting old. In the past, I approached and photographed subjects that attracted me. Now I seem to be attracted to those subjects removed from the line of sight. There's a word, Shinra Bansho, meaning all things in nature, whole creation, or universe. Photography takes only a small part of this whole creation away, while the subject I choose exists equally. I hope you found Suda's work to be as compelling and inspiring as I did. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep developing.